The word immaculate means clean, without blemish. That's what immaculate means. So immaculate conception is conception without orgasm. That's what it means. Of course, the Catholic Church calls Mary a virgin, but that's not what virgin means. A virgin birth is, again, it's immaculate conception without blemish. And there's a reason why the Catholic Church made this change to the definitions. Because supersexuality creates masters, creates gods. When Emperor Constantine appropriated the Christian faith and created the Catholic Church, this was a Roman emperor picking a new religion for his empire, which was beginning to crumble, and he wanted to solidify his stranglehold over the Roman Empire. Well, how can any top-down organization strengthen its stranglehold over an empire by teaching people how to become gods? No, that's not how that works. That's not how organized religions hold on to power. And when it comes to controlling the clergy and the nuns and whatever, imposing celibacy upon them was a way to psychologically essentially abuse them and create a kind of Stockholm syndrome where the nuns and the priests believe that they're married to God and that sexuality in all its forms is dirty and that nuns have to aspire to be like the Virgin Mary. The logistical problems that this would have created the Catholic Church from their point of view, from their perspective, would have been a nightmare. You can see why maintaining power and maintaining control absolutely depended upon that central authority outlawing the use of the sexual force by individuals, except for the sake of bearing children, because children had an economical value to the church and to all authorities, right? Because they have to rule over the people. The more people they rule over, the wealthier they are, the more taxes they collect, etc. So procreation was okay, but having sex for any other purpose than procreation, that was not okay. And rest assured that they spent a great deal of time, Emperor Constantine did, with his theologians, deciding what's getting cut out of the Bible. And that's why we only have 4 Gospels, heavily redacted, heavily altered 4 Gospels. And the Gnostic Gospels were redacted from the Bible, in which a lot of this information was revealed. For example, the fact that Mary Magdalene and Jesus were married. Well, we couldn't have that, right? The Catholic Church couldn't anyway. Well, we grew up not just Catholic school, but Catholic Church. So we know all about that indoctrination process, and we know all about those teachings. So the act of creation happens all the time. There's no stopping it. You can't stop creation. Creation creates. It's like trying to stop the flow of water. Water wants to flow. And if you do try to stop it forcibly, confine it and stop it, and you do manage to get water to stop, what happens? It becomes putrefied. It becomes toxic. It attracts all kinds of parasites to it. And you get this fetid pool of dead water. And that happens inside of those who are forcibly become celibates, like priests and nuns, because they believe all of sexuality is dirty now. And they've eradicated it out, they've repressed it, they've suppressed it, they've taken their sexual force, and they try to lead good lives, and they try to lead, but what happens? That sexual force becomes stagnant in them because it wants to flow, it wants to be vibrant and energetic and alive. And so it becomes putrefied, it becomes bitter. And so when it does finally break free from its repressed state, how does it manifest? Well, in the case of nuns, if you went to a school and you were taught by nuns, you know how vicious they could be, how physically violent and how ruthless and how bitter and resentful they were. They were not happy. And in the case of priests, by now we are all aware, or should all be aware, of the worldwide scandal of pedophile priests, because that repressed sexuality, Jennifer says that's 100% true about nuns. So the sexual energy in the case of those priests, eventually, it became putrefied, it became rotten, and so degenerated that they were buggering the altar boys. They're abusing the altar boys. So you see, there is no happy middle way. As a single person, the answer is not masturbation, because masturbation is just a clever euphemism and another form of sexual degeneration. Masturbation is very harmful, even though the doctors will tell you to do it because they say it's very healthy. It's very harmful psychologically. It's very harmful spiritually, because you're training the energy to flow down and out. No, what you want to do is practice pranayama as a single person and work with the sexual energy by circulating it through the body. So we've discussed this before, but we'll discuss it again. There are many, many, many different practices of pranayama, and we would end up spending at least an hour just going over them all. We would rather share with you a resource that you can turn to. This is a course specifically about pranayama. It explains a great many things, including techniques. We have done entire live streams just on pranayama, just on the nature of prana. So there is another practice which is important for bachelors and bachelorettes, right? Singles. These are the rites of rejuvenation, specifically the sixth and seventh rites. It's called the Vajroli Mudra. It's transmutation of the sexual energy for bachelors and bachelorettes, as you can read on the screen. And we just threw it up again. And we're going to put the link also in the chat. The practice is different for men and women. And it's advisable to do this in order, do all the rites of rejuvenation first and save this for last, because the rites of rejuvenation, you're working with prana, you're doing pranayama, and you are working with your body in these various yogic poses and prayer and so on, and you're already awakening and harnessing the energy of prana throughout your body. And it's like you're preparing yourself for this final rite, which then seeks to stimulate the kundalini in such a way that it awakens, and then you can transmute it. It's an important practice. It's one that not many people know about. People assume that by practicing pranayama, they are awakening kundalini. And people assume that those kundalini schools that are telling you that pay us $200 or $500 for a weekend retreat and we will awaken your kundalini for you, that is complete 100% nonsense. If they're doing anything, they're doing black magic. They're doing manipulation of the most precious creative force. And it's not that they're breaking the law. It's not that kind of a law. But they're working with the law in a black way, which means the result is only going to be black. That's the way laws work, right? Like the law of gravity. If you jump off a cliff, you're going to fall. It's not that you're breaking the law of gravity. You're working with the law of gravity. But you're working with the law of gravity in a fatal way. You're going to fall. And that's why in Genesis we have the fall of humanity. And that's why all great tragic heroes fall. Because when you fall down, you're going down the downward spiral, you're going down and out, you're going down into hell. That's why it's always the same language and it's always the same allegory. When great men fall, and the higher they rise, the farther they fall. And we have all these idioms and all these expressions for a reason, because this is the reason that we're talking about, we're sharing here.